Welcome to Local Only Cantina.
Mixing it up with
Brandon
and Cherie.
What's up, fam? We're back.
What's up, guys?
Back.
How's it going?
Yo,
You want me to start this off?
sure.
Okay.
Sure. So you're gonna start this off.
Okay, you guys. So we just had a conversation with some of our friends, and we kind of had a subject that was brought up, and I think it's a good subject to discuss because I think this becomes very confusing in relationships and how they can incorporate it for themselves or how it works for couples. So what we're going to talk about today is freedom and who deserves freedom in their relationship. And is freedom real? Is it an illusion? I don't know.
Freedom, good, bad. Well, of course, for freedom's good. No, but there's all sorts of
Maybe definitions of freedom.
perspectives when it comes to this stuff in relationships, and I can see it from both sides, and I have opinions on both sides as well. So let's have a drink and let's get to task on this, huh?
Okay, sounds
Cheers.
good. Cheers.
Also, before we start here, hit that subscription on there, subscription bell, or the notification bell actually. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're actually starting to get a lot more views than we ever have before, a lot more downloads than we ever had before, so that's been cool.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more of our subjects, then if you like or subscribe, you'll be able to see it a lot easier. So
Yeah, and if you have any issue or any questions, comments, things you'd like us to discuss, comment below, and that would help us generate the old hamster wheel upstairs and help us think of more shit to talk to you guys about too. So,
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Freedom.
where do we begin with this subject? This is kind of one of those subjects that I think is really hard for couples because once you get married, especially in the beginning of your relationship, of your marriage, I know for me, when we first got together, when we first got married, it was something that was actually really hard for me because in my world, you were the one that got to go out and do a lot of the things that you wanted to do still, and I didn't. And it really had to do with the fact that
I left the house and went to work.
No. So did I.
At first you did.
No, what I'm talking
You were
about.
a stay-at-home mom for a long time.
What are you trying to do? You're going to hold that against me?
I'm
What's
just
up with that?
saying, I didn't leave the house and live it up and do
Yeah, you
exciting
did.
shit all the time.
Yeah, let me tell you what I'm talking about. Let me tell you.
I know what you're talking about, and it was
No.
few and far between.
No, this is what I'm talking about, is when we first got married, it just changed the whole dynamic with our friend groups. And we had a pretty good friend group that we hung out with, and once we became married, it all of a sudden seemed like none of the friends that were girls that I had wanted to hang out anymore. They kind of felt like I had moved to the next level in life, and they just didn't really know how they fit into my life. And so all of a sudden I went from having all these friends to a place where they wanted to go out and do the single things without me and didn't know how to keep that relationship. And I think your friends were a lot better at still being able to do some of those things. Like, you would still go mountain biking with your friends. You'd still go out and do a lot of fun stuff. And I did feel a little bit jealous earlier on in our marriage because of that. I don't think it really had anything to do with anything else but the fact that we were just in a different stage in life. And when you move to the next level in life or the next stage in life or a different stage in life than your friends, then that can change your friend dynamic. And I think that was kind of a big deal for me. It was really hard for me to kind of grasp why my friends didn't want to hang out with me and what it meant for us, and how we change things to make it work for the both of us. So
Yeah.
And I think a lot of couples go through that, especially when they first are married. I mean, we have some young neighbors who are married, and they have some young friends that are still single, and they don't really want to be hanging out with a married chick anymore. Like,
I don't want to hang out with them either. Not the neighbors.
It's just
the people that don't want to hang out with me. I don't want to hang with you. It's that simple. For me, it's easier than that. I don't know that it makes me feel bad. It's just like, well, if you don't like me, fuck you then, right?
Nice. Well, for those of you who actually miss your friends when your life changes and different things happen, then
there's friends that I miss, and there's friends that stop hanging out with me because of things like that. And honestly, like, I don't know, I just have a different mindset out of it. I'm only gonna invite you to things so many times, and then I'm not after that. It's very clear you don't want to spend time with me, so I'm not gonna invest any emotional investment into it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's just like, to me, it's not like a heartbreaker. It's just like, okay, well, that's not somebody that I want in my life.
No, that's taking it to a different level, though. What I'm talking about is when different things happen in your life that change your life. So, like, changing from being single to getting married, or changing from being with your married friends to being the only couple with kids when your married friends might not have kids, and then they don't want to hang out with others couples that have kids. Like, there's so many different stages in life where you kind of go through these things in marriage. And I think that has a lot to do with feeling whether, like, you have freedom or not to do the things that you want to do. And it's hard because everybody's on a different level, right? So if you have a lot of single friends and they want to go out and go dancing, or they want to go out and do all those things.
You were going with this. So we had an issue, like, when we were first married, and Shree thought that it was still okay to go to, like, clubs and go dancing with her friends. And I said, absolutely not. Why? She's like, oh, we're just going to go dance with each other. And I'm like, you're saying that if some dude walks up to you and dances with you, you're going to, like, shove him away and not dance? Oh, well, I'm not necessarily saying that. Here's the thing. Girls might totally have the mindset they're just going to go to the club and dance with their friends. But they're going to end up dancing with guys, because guys walk up to the club and dance with them. And here's the deal. The girls might have intentions to just dance with their friends, and they're just there for fun. But I know why guys are there, and I know why guys want to dance with them, right? It's a different dynamic. And I've always felt really strongly that it's super inappropriate for girls to have a girls' night out and go to a club and dance. They can go to a restaurant, they can go to a bar, they can hang out, they can eat some food, they can have some drinks. But when you're going to go out and grind with people, that's not a thing that single people or that married people should do by themselves.
Well, here's the reality of it, right? So as a young, like, early married person.
Hold on a second. Now that you're older and we've been married for a long time, you see it the same way I do. But you did not see it the same way.
I know, that's where I'm going to.
Okay.
All
right.
Chill out.
Okay. All right.
We might have to get the boxing gloves on for this one. I don't know. He's all fired up already, and I'm like, come on, pull it back a little bit, pull the reins back.
Bring it. Come on, let's go.
No, that's what I'm saying, is it was really hard for me to understand that in the beginning, because when your partner, when you say, I want to go do this, and your partner's like, no, but you used to be in that place where you could go and do it whenever you wanted, anytime, all the time, right? Like, that's a big change in your life. And when you first get into a relationship and that becomes a thing, like, that can be really, really hard for you to take, I guess. And being as young as I was, I didn't really realize his perspective in it, right? So he's like, no, like, you can't do it. And, like, for me, like, my first response is like, ugh, I just want to go do the thing, right? Like, that's what happens when somebody, as you're an adult, and somebody tells you what you can and can't do, especially when they're supposed to be your partner and the person that loves you, and they say no.
Let me go out and dance with other guys. It's only fair.
No, but see, that's the thing is like
that's ultimately what it is, though.
That's what your perspective
No,
is.
that's what happens.
I know.
100% of the times, that's the way
you better get
ends up.
I think you need to get the boxing gloves out for this one.
That's how it ends up. You're not going to go to the club and dance with your friends and never dance with a guy. That's just not the way it works. If you're not attractive, that might happen. But when you look like you and your friends, that's not going to be the way it goes down.
Well, if you'd let me finish what I'm trying to say.
All right.
My goodness. So
You're picking fights here, not me.
You're the one picking fights. I don't know. We might get in a fight after this. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, like makeup sex is fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, going back to what I'm saying is, as a young person who just got married, it was really hard for me to understand because in my head, I'm thinking, I'm going to go to the club. I'm going to dance with my girls because in a woman's mind, when going dancing with the girls, it means something completely different than what the guy is thinking, right? But that doesn't mean that he's wrong in what he's thinking. So for me, it was kind of like, the thing that I love about going and dancing with a group of girls is that we're just all hanging out, we're all having fun, and we're all dancing together, right? But Brandon's not wrong. Brandon knows how the male mind works, right? And so he knows that there's going to be guys that are going to be looking around, looking for some opportunity, looking for the girl that they want to take home that night or the girl they want to dance with that night. And a lot of times you meet guys who are a little bit more aggressive, or maybe they're not aggressive, but maybe you've had a couple drinks, maybe they've had a couple drinks, or maybe
your husband's at home and he's not so smooth,
fun, right?
And this dude at the bar walks up and he's real smooth, and it makes you feel a way you haven't felt before. It's not a good plan.
Yeah. So being as young as I was and not really understanding it, the male side of that, where he kind of knows what other men are thinking, and I'm just kind of thinking, I'm going to go dancing with my girls. It's going to be fun. It's going to be this thing. It's not actually as innocent as we think, right? And the crazy thing about it is like, I don't know, there was one friend that I remember back when we first got married that wanted me to go dancing with her quite often, and her husband didn't want to go dancing. But
This is what I was going to bring up.
Yeah, so Brandon actually was one that was like, hey, I don't feel comfortable at this, and I was just like, oh, I want to go dancing, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? But I didn't really fully understand why. I just felt like he was like trying to push back and not let me have that freedom that I once had. And the crazy thing is like Brandon loves to go dancing with me, and so whenever we've gone dancing, like why the hell you got to go without me? Yeah, like I'll fucking go too, right? Like we'll have fun. Like I just never understood that. Yeah, like so it was just a different scenario where one of my friends. I'm assuming it's the same one I'm thinking of, and she loved to dance. He absolutely refused to go, and because he refused to go, he would just let her go by herself, right? Yeah. I told Shri, I'm like, they're fucked. They're doomed. Yeah. And what happened? I turned out to be right. Well, the thing is, it didn't last long. The thing is she. And who did she meet? Somebody liked to dance. Yeah. She met them at the club, right? If I'm not mistaken. No, she didn't. But the thing they had in common was they liked to dance, and they would go dancing all the time. So the husband refused to do the thing that she wanted to do. Next thing you know, the dude's replaced, right? So this sort of goes back to what we talked about on the last episode we did. Guys, sometimes you just gotta do the thing, right? You know? If she loves to dance and you don't, dude, trust me, she's gonna replace you with somebody that does. So fucking learn to like to dance. Yeah, I mean, that's just what I was going to say, is bringing it back to what we were talking about before, and being able to do the things for... Whoa, sorry. Oh, that's a good thing that's not full. Doing the things for your partner that... Sometimes you do things for your partner that you don't even exactly like to do. Or maybe you got to get out of your comfort zone, and maybe you're sitting around watching TV, or you're getting projects done at the house, and it's a weekend. Maybe you take a weekend once a month and you go take her dancing if she likes to go dancing. Or, if your husband likes to go on motorcycle rides, you go on motorcycle rides with them. Like, it's about being able to share those experiences together instead of trying to do them separately. Now, there's different avenues that you can go down in the whole like freedom realm of things in a marriage, and there's so many extremes, and Brian and I have seen it in many of our friends our friend couples that we have. And sometimes when you go through hard things in a relationship, especially if you felt like maybe there's been a little bit of infidelity or whatever, it might be hard to even let your spouse do even some of the easy things in your life, right? In their lives, right? Like just having that trust and having that understanding. And really that's what it's centered around in what kind of I'm moving towards, is just being able to allow them to have their own interests, allow them to do their own thing, only if it's something that's not going to bring them to another person, right? Like,
right. It's super important to have your own interests.
Yeah.
You have to have interest to be interesting, right? Going to a club and meeting members of the opposite sex, I think, is not anything healthy for a relationship. However, if somebody's into the gym, if they're into riding motorcycles, if they're into doing crafts, if they're into doing these things, right? Like, there's all sorts of activities you can be interested in where you don't need to be like jealous of their time.
But sometimes people can take that time and they can like put their partner in a box and they keep like boxing them up.
What does that mean?
Just to where you are a little too concerned, or like they can't go out with their friends because, like, even to dinner, they can't go out for, and I'm thinking of like one, maybe even family member or someone that we have, where they have to sit at home every single weekend with their spouse and not do anything because the other one is afraid of them going out with their friends, and they don't want to go out themselves. And the type of environment that actually creates in your own home, and where that's going to actually end up going.
Well, that'd be like one of those things like on the last episode where I'm like, guys, I'm going to punch you in the face with this one, right? Like, that's your own damn fault. You trap your partner at home, you're doomed also, right? People have interests. They need to be able to do their thing. I need to be able to do the shit I do. Sheree needs to be able to do the shit she does. But there's certain things that I'm just going to choose not to do because I know they're not appropriate for me to do. I'm not going to go on a guy's trip to Vegas because Vegas is not a good place for a married person to be without their spouse. It's just not. We've all heard the term, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Why would you want your spouse to go there by themselves? That is literally the slogan of the place, right? That's stupid. So go there with them and have fun. And if you two decide to get crazy and leave your secrets there, then cool, they're your secrets, right? Yeah. But I wouldn't expect Sheree to go there with her girlfriends, and I'm not going to go there with my guy friends. And because I would choose to control myself and not do it, then I expect her to do the same. That might sound, to some of you, you might think that sounds lame, but I would say, like, if you're going to let your wife go to Vegas by herself with her friends, I'm like, you're just fucking asking for trouble, right? Vice versa, girls, if your guy goes there by themselves too, it's not a smart plan.
Yeah, we've always been, as time has gone on in our relationship, we've kind of had these conversations about what we feel comfortable with. And there was one trip that you went on that I think might be kind of a fun conversation to bring
Which
up.
Which one is that?
Not from your perspective, from your perspective, but not something that you did, like going to Wendover and seeing somebody kind of enjoy their freedom, and that's kind of what they did without their wife, right?
That was just a strip club, though.
It was just a strip club.
It was a super religious dude that he gave himself like one day a year that he got to cut loose, and we ended up at the club in Wendover, and it was, don't ever go to the club in Wendover. It's awful. If you do avert your eyes, like, it was stupid. But this dude, I mean, he got silly drunk. But I mean, he lives a very strict religious life all year long. And this was the one day without his spouse where he got to cut loose and drink and do the things that he did. And he woke up the next day with significantly less money in his pocket. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I don't know what else. I've never seen the dude. I've never talked to the dude since. He was like a member of a group of friends that I went with, but I don't really know the guy. But
now, the reason why I bring that up is
It was
because these types of
silly
situations do happen where people do go there for that cut loose, right? They go there
if you're gonna
for
go
that
to
experience,
Vegas, if you're gonna
right?
go to a place like that, like, you're going there to cut loose. And my point is this: I want to go cut loose too, but I'd prefer to cut loose with her than to cut loose with my guy friends.
And really, what it comes down to is
At least in that way.
yeah.
I do like to go out on like motorcycle rides with my guy friends and have drinks and bullshit and all that stuff. I have just as much fun by myself as I do with her when we do that stuff. But we're just hanging out. But I don't want to go to Vegas necessarily without her, though. That's not a thing that I'm interested in.
Yeah, and I think that that's just something that you have to decide in your relationship. And the reason why I even wanted to bring up this topic is because of the fact that this comes up quite a bit in marriages. This comes up quite a bit in relationships. And I think, it's going to be different for each of your relationships. But one of the things that I've seen over the years is my friends who have gone to the club, who keep going out without their husbands after they get married, are ones that are either struggling or they don't have a marriage anymore. And so, I mean, now the one friend that we were talking about, what was it, like, how long have we been married? Almost 20 years. Holy crap, almost 20 years.
19 years.
So it's been about 19 years, and I think it was 3 years after that they ended up getting divorced. And so you really have to make decisions and really be true to your heart about those decisions. And you know what? If your partner is saying that they don't want you to do a certain thing or do a certain activity, I think you should really kind of step back and see it from their perspective and listen to what they have to say about it. And I think that was really hard for me in the beginning because like when you're so young and you're kind of stubborn in your ways because you're just at the point where you're like, I'm living my own life, I have all this freedom, and then you get married and then you're like, where did all my freedom go? It's kind of this weird dynamic that you just have to get to a point where you're willing to listen to your partner and their concerns are valid. You have to be able to listen to their concerns because it may not make sense to you, but what is going to go through his mind while I'm at the club? Like, he's going to be sitting here with our kids and I'm going to go to the club and he's just going to be like, Shree's having fun.
There's a lot of people
right?
that live like that and they do that thing, right? But like we said in the last episode, divorce is also over 50% nowadays, right? And like I use Vegas as an example. There's nothing about that town that it's like absolutely you can't go, right? Like if you had to go there on a work trip, whatever, if you have to go, like if Shree went there, she takes a trip every year with her mom and her sisters. I would have zero issues with her going there with her mom and her sisters, right? But if you're gonna go there like bachelorette party or
a bunch of fun
bachelor
girls
party
and we're
or
just
something
gonna
like that, you're there to party, right? And you're probably gonna meet people like that. That's stuff that has to be considered, has to be discussed.
Yeah.
And you know what? If your spouse is super down, cool, they're super down. But if they're not, like, you can't hold that against them. You have to be understanding that, like, listen, this person's not okay with that, right? Like, again, we talk a lot about the fact that I ride bikes. There is an achievement that I want to get here soon. It's called an iron butt, and you ride 1,000 miles in less than 24 hours, I think it is. And Vegas, from where I live, Vegas is a good shot to go out and back, right? Now, if I chose to do that ride and go out and back, I would have zero time to hang out and party, right? I would be on my bike the whole time, out and back, right?
Is this
And,
his way of telling
No.
me that he's doing it?
I'm just saying, like, that's a destination for a ride like that from where I live. But there would be zero time to stop. You got to go out. You have to come back. You got to get back by a certain time. You go there for, I don't know. I'm just saying, if somebody's uncomfortable with a thing, don't do the thing. If everybody's comfortable with the thing, cool, do the thing. But guys or girls, you do have to be cognizant of the fact that, like, maybe you shouldn't be comfortable with some things, right? You know, if your husband or your wife is like, hey, I'm going to go do this thing, and you're like, if there's that little thing in your gut that says, I don't know if I agree with that, don't just be agreeable, because you might find yourself in a situation afterwards that you certainly wish you had spoke up, right?
Yeah, and it's easy to be like too nice about a situation, right? Like if you're not feeling right about it, you should have that conversation. And it really has to do with just communicating that and not being afraid to communicate the feelings that you're having.
And on the opposite side of it, there's people out there that won't let their spouse do a goddamn thing by themselves ever, and that's also not good, right?
Yes.
You know? And
yes.
so this is why the subject is like I know people that won't let their spouse go to the gym because they think they're at the gym and they're going to be like talking to all these people and this and that. And I know somebody that's like, oh, my wife has no interest, has no business being friends with members of the opposite sex on Facebook. And I'm like, you're expecting their entire Facebook friendship to be female only? Like, I mean, I got all sorts of female friends. She has all sorts of, but it's like people are super extreme to the amount of jealousy they have too. That's also not good, right? So it's a very interesting discussion because there's somewhere in the middle that's good and comfortable, and then there's like these wackos on the extreme. And I think the wackos on the extreme end up divorced either way, right?
Yeah.
Because they're either too willing and too open to let them go do the shit and experience all the fun, and they eventually like find themselves with somebody more fun than this guy. Or there's this guy on this end that's super jealous and super this and that, and then their spouse ends up like, well, you're freaking lame and you won't let me do anything. I feel like I'm in handcuffs. So you can be too free and you can be too unfree, and both are bad.
So what do you do, Brandon?
What the fuck do you do?
Really?
What I do is I assess each situation and I decide at the time.
Well, here's the thing is, like, you don't want to trap your partner and make them feel like they're so trapped that they have no way out of the relationship to where they want to leave the relationship. If you're suffocating them so much to where they want to leave the relationship, then that can be disastrous. But on the other side of things, you as the person who feels suffocated, maybe you need to kind of look at the situation from a different perspective, see it from their perspective, and see if it's legit, if it's a reality that they're seeing, or if they're being a little too crazy in the moment, right? So I think, like, with every situation, if your partner says no, then you communicate and you say, hey, why is this a problem? And if the problem that they have is that they feel, you know, like going to the gym, like stuff to better yourself, to improve yourself, stuff like that is super important. Like, you've got to allow your partner to be able to do that. Brandon goes to the gym every single day. I go about 2 to 3 times a week. But if I were to one day just be like, I don't really think that you should go to the gym because there's other women at the gym,
I'd still go.
then, well, yeah.
Yeah, I'd still go.
And that's
First of all, there is this much eye candy at the gym that I go to.
Well, it doesn't really matter whether there's eye candy or not. But
I've been to gyms that have lots of eye candy, and the gym that I go to has almost none. It's almost 90% dudes, and
but I guess you have
nothing to be concerned about there.
Well, I guess you have to realize, like, where you're willing to be able to, like, find a happy medium between you guys. Because if you do have a partner that's just like, I'm going to do it anyway, that can cause problems also in a relationship, right?
Yeah, but also, like, do you want, like, that's what we're talking about. There's the
Yeah.
wackos on the extreme.
Yeah.
Do you even want to be with someone like that?
There needs to be a conversation that you have, because I do feel like if your partner says, and this is what I'm talking about, like you just saying, okay, well, I'm going to go anyway. Well, I could have done that with the whole dancing thing too.
You could have, but we would have had issues.
Yeah, same thing, right? So you got to be willing to talk about everything that you're going through, right?
But I did talk and I explained and this and that, right? But if you're just like, I'm not going to let you go to the gym because there's girls at the gym. That's much different than I don't want you to go to the club because you're going to be dancing with guys at the club, right? I don't go to the gym and like dance with chicks while I lift weights and shit like that and like grind up on them and stuff like that, right? Like, that's not at all the same thing.
But your partner may have other feelings. Like, you and I are on the same page here, so this is not really our argument.
Well, it's kind of not an equal
I just want
comparison.
But not in our minds, but in other people's minds it might. So
right,
I'm just saying we need to go through that whole conversation.
But in that mind, the person that I would talk to is the weirdo saying you're not allowed to go to the gym, right? Like, that's the guy that's in trouble. He is doomed, because the second his wife finds somebody that shows them any attention at all and seems to be cool, dude, she's fucking gone, right? Like, this is like, most of the time when I talk, like, the guys are the ones that I talk to, right? Like, you need to get your shit in order. You need to have your game tight, because if you don't, she's going to find someone else that does. And if you're the guy saying you're not allowed to go to the gym because there's dudes at the gym, that might be true and you might feel uncomfortable, but you need to ask yourself, why do you feel uncomfortable? Do you think she's going to like them more than you? And if you do, that very well be because you don't necessarily like what you look like when you look in the mirror, right? So maybe if you feel insecure about these two dudes at the gym, maybe you ought to go to the gym yourself, because then you don't have to feel insecure, right? There's somebody that's very jealous like that. They have internal issues on their own. And unless they address that themselves, they're just being controlling assholes.
And that is 100% why I'm saying you got to have that conversation, because if you really care about your partner and they're telling you not to go to the gym, you need to have that conversation and be brave enough to have that conversation. And that's why I'm talking about this.
So what are you saying? You tell the guy, like, well, if you weren't such a fat dude, then you wouldn't care if I went to the gym.
No. Obviously you're not going to say that. But no, what I'm saying
what I'm saying is the guys need to see that themselves and take personal accountability.
But what I'd like to say with this and what I'm talking about is there's going to be those conversations that you're going to need to have as couples, and you got to say, hey, I'm going to stand up for myself and let my partner know that this is something good for me to improve myself and become a better me. And it's not about that, like, I couldn't go to Brandon and be like, I just want to become a better dancer, so I'm going to go to the club anyway, so screw you, right? But if you're going to have a conversation with your partner and say, I have to go to the gym because it's making a better me, it's making a healthier me, because 100%, like, making yourself healthier nutritional wise or fitness wise, like, those are things, or even like mentorship or anything like that, like stuff like that will help build you as a person. And you have to have that conversation with your partner. Don't be afraid, because guess what? The reality of it is we actually train our partners how to treat us. We train our partners how to be equal in our relationship. And they're not going to be that, and Brandon's going to get all upset because I said equal. But what I'm saying, I'm not saying that him and I have to be equal on everything, but to be able to have them understand that you need that self-development, you need that self-improvement for you, you have to stand up for yourself. If you do not stand up for yourself, then they're going to keep taking those freedoms away from you, right? So, and that's why, like...
Well, we're not talking about us here. Like, I have no issue when Sheree goes to the gym.
No.
She has no issues that I go to the gym.
But we have friends that have those types of issues.
Friends, people we know, family even. Yeah.
Yeah, and
we all
they
have people in our
have
lives.
to have those conversations because we really do train our partners to be the person that is healthy in our relationship, right? Like, if you're constantly putting me down, then you're training me just to respond to being put down, right? Like, we've got to be able to stand up and say, hey, I need this. I deserve this for myself, to self-improve myself, and that's okay. But if you don't have that conversation and you don't stand up for yourself, then you just may have to end that part of your life. And then you're going to slowly sink into this world where you don't even know who you are anymore. You don't know who your partner is anymore because you both have grown in different directions instead of growing together.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm talking about, is
What's that?
making sure that you guys do stand up for
that
things that are
song?
important to have personal growth, because personal growth is actually a huge thing in a relationship, and you both should be working towards your personal growth because that's what makes make you guys interesting. That's the thing that makes it so that when you come together, you have something to talk about at the end of the day. And that's what helps you moving forward. If only one of you is moving forward and the other one is staying back, then that causes issues also. And one of the things that I love about Brandon and I is the reason why we even do these podcasts and have these conversations is because these are the types of conversations that Brandon and I have regularly.
Yeah.
Him and I actually have these conversations and we talk about these things because they're important and we know that they mean something for our relationship.
Yeah.
And so that's why we just decided to start talking to you guys, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But what you
Oh,
looking up
I
there?
always love this song right here, and what Sheree just said made me think about this. But it's Bruno Mars' song, "When I Was Your Man." When I was your man, right? I actually posted something on Locals Only Facebook page today about having no regrets, right? Like leaving it all on the table, because if you don't half-ass it, it was a what's his name? I got a book right here. It was a Matthew McConaughey quote. And he just, it was basically about not half-assing it, because if you don't half-ass it, if you give it all you got, then you don't ever have to wonder how it may have been had you tried as hard as you could, right? But I've always loved this song, and it's kind of a sad song too, but it's it starts out with same bed, but it feels a little bit bigger now, right? It all sounds, let's see, we'll go on. Too young, too dumb to realize that I should have bought you flowers, and I should have held your hand, should have gave you all my hours when I had the chance. Take you to every party, because all you wanted to do was dance. Now my baby's dancing, but she's dancing with another man. My pride, my ego, my needs, and my selfish ways caused a good, strong woman like you to walk out of my life. Now I never get to clean up the mess I made. Oh, and that haunts me every time I close my eyes, right? And it goes on. The whole song is about that. And man, if you have been through that before, that probably caused your heart to hurt a tad, right? You know, because sometimes you don't see what you had until it's gone, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes once it's gone, you think, man, I should have just done this. I should have just done that. Maybe I shouldn't have been so jealous. Maybe I should have given them this much freedom, right? On the other side too, there might be that person's that demanded all the freedom. They demanded to go dancing. They demanded to go to Vegas. And all this stuff, and they're like, fuck, I really fucked up because I demanded more than I ought to have, right? So there's I'm saying both things at the same time here, right? Point is you got to do what's comfortable for the both of you, and each of you are probably going to have to sacrifice a tad as far as that comfort zone goes. And if you're too free, that's an issue. If you're too unfree, that's also an issue, right?
I think you really have to be honest with yourself, and I'll probably say this about so many things that we talk about. And because really, if you really think about it, that's the hardest thing when it comes to communicating with other people, is really being honest with yourself and the way that you're seeing the situation, or maybe taking a step back and seeing it from a different perspective. Like, put yourself in their shoes and see what they're seeing, you know? I mean, like the whole dancing thing, like if Brandon was like, I want to go to the club, I want to go dancing, you should stay home with the kids while I go dancing, you know? Like, how would I feel about that?
That would be stupid, right? Because dudes don't just go out and dance in a circle with dudes, right? There is no point in that.
But there is this balance that you've got to find, and it really has to do with the communication that you have as a couple and being realistic. And what I mean by being honest with yourself is, it's like are you preventing your spouse from going to the gym because you're not in shape yourself and you feel like you're lacking in her eyes? Maybe she's gonna find somebody better than you. Like, you got to be honest with yourself and really realize where your feelings are coming from. And then on the other side, you got to be able to be honest with yourself and say, hey, maybe this really isn't the best environment for me to be in if I'm married, because it could cause this kind of thing to happen. And really be real with yourself, because it may not happen the first time you go to the club. It may not happen the second time you go to the club. It may not happen the fifth time you go to the club. But guess what? One of those times that you go to the club, it's going to happen. And so I think you really have to be honest with yourself and really just understand that your partner has feelings, and have that conversation and find like a middle ground, you know, and say, hey, I want to go dancing and you need to step up and you need to go dancing with me. And that's super important for you to step up and be there for your partner, especially when there's some things that your partner loves to do. And here's the crazy thing, you guys, like if your girl loves to go dancing and she gets all like sexy and fun when she goes dancing, guess who's going to benefit from that if you take your girl dancing?
Who?
Who do you think, Brandon?
Random dude at the club that...
No, if you take your girl dancing, you're going to go home and you're going to have a fun night with your girl. So realize the benefits from coming from that. And girls, if your guy's willing to take you dancing, you're feeling sexy, you're having fun, then finish the night having fun. 100%. Because your guy just put himself out there to do something that he wasn't most comfortable with. And it should be an enjoyable night for the both of you, and make it this hot, sexy thing that you guys get to do together after a fun night, just because like you want to have that romance in your life. Like, as women, we always like look at these movies and we're always thinking, oh, I wish my husband was as romantic as that. I wish he would do this. I wish he'd do that, right? But he is sometimes, and we just take it for granted because he's there all the time, right? And if we take these moments where he shows up for us and we just let the night be a fun night, and we have all that romance and all that fun together when we get home, then guess what? He's gonna want to take you dancing again. He's gonna want to be able to do those things for you again. And it's all about like being able to show up for each other and have a fun night for each other. It's not that I'm having to give him this thing. No, it's like this thing that we share together, and we can have this fun, amazing night together. And isn't that what we all want? Isn't that what we're all looking for, is to have this amazing relationship that 20 years down the road, like Brandon and I, like you can have this super hot night together, and it's romantic and it's sexy and it's hot and it's fun. You guys, like, you have to create that for each other. And that was like one of the biggest things I've learned over the years, is like, we watch these movies, we watch all these things that give us all these emotions, and we're just like, oh, all these emotions, and we're taking them all in. But guess what? What do we do with those emotions? Can we fantasize and just imagine this world that we don't live in? Or do we put our efforts and our energy and our thinking towards the relationships that we already have? And we create that within our relationship. And I don't think that there's very many of us out there who actually use that energy for that. And you're only to benefit from that by doing those things. I just said a lot of stuff.
I got nothing to say about that. What she said, ditto that. That's, yeah.
But I think like we get...
She should just do the show herself.
That's right. No, just kidding. No, but I mean, that's how we show up for each other, right? And just like on the other side of things, like as women, we got to show up for our men and the things that interest them, and don't just like put up with it. Go and do the things and enjoy those experiences.
Put up with it. That's an interesting thing. Because we got split. I don't even know how long we are now, but put up with it, right? Ladies, you do have that mindset sometimes where you gotta like put up with the things your dude's interested in. Rewind that for a second. What if the dude was interested in nothing? You would like despise him because he had no interests. Allow the dude to have interests. Whether it's watching football, whether it's brewing beer, whether it's like fucking playing pool with his friends, or riding motorcycles, or mountain biking, or skiing, or whatever, right? I've heard that a lot, like, oh, I gotta put up with his interests. And that's where Cherie was when we were like first married, when I'd go like camping with my buddy here and there, right? But if your dude had no interest at all, that would be like worse. You gotta have interest to be interesting, right? But we get into this relationship and it becomes this like me against you thing sometimes, right? And that's where shit goes downhill real quick. Unfortunately, it happens way more often. Probably more often than not. And she's just ensuring that I don't drink more of her drink right now. She's just downing it.
Hey, you just start drinking my drink after a while. It's not
I
fair.
got a whole another thing of it right here. No, but for real, right? Like, it's so strange because, and I've even heard like guys say this too. It's not just a female thing, but you gotta support them in their interests, no matter what they are. Unless it's like sleeping with other people, then I guess that's an interest that maybe you don't have to support them in. But no, people have to have interest to be interesting, right? You know.
Yeah, and I think like in kind of going back to having those conversations, sometimes their interests may have may bring up concerns, right? Like he was saying, playing pool with the buddies, like that could bring up a concern of like going to the bar, you know, and being around other women, you know. But
like you go on girls' nights to like the piano bar.
No.
And I don't necessarily have concerns about that, but you come back, you're like, oh, there was this guy and this and that, and he talked to us, or he talked to so and so, right? It's equally plausible, right?
Yeah, and we don't have that issue.
No, we don't. I'm just saying that, like, I don't necessarily have an issue going to a bar. For me, like, the dancing.
No, but there
like,
may be
like
couples
the
that do. They do.
There
So
are
that's
some
why
that
I'm
do.
bringing that up, right? So if there is a concern there, and something like that may be legit, right? Like, because you're not going to the club to play pool to better yourself, but you need those experiences with your guy friends. So like there's got to be that communication. If you have concerns, you need to talk to your partner about it. It doesn't mean that that shouldn't happen. It just means that you are more than welcome to express your concerns, and you should listen to your partner, right? Just like if I go to the piano bar and I'm like gonna be there, and there's always going to be the opposite sex. There's always going to be somebody, right?
Walks up and talks to somebody. There's been times where Sheree and I could go out with like another couple or a couple other couples, and me and the dude, like, we leave them at the restaurant downtown, and we go to get the car, and we come back and pick them up. And by the time we get back, there's already like dudes like talking to them on the street, right? It's going to be a thing that happens. You're married to an attractive person, right?
But if you
It's
keep
just
yourself
the way it
up to
goes.
that level also, then you have a little bit more confidence in
Right.
your relationship.
And
And,
this
that's
is-
what we're talking about.
This is what I've talked about before, right? Like, guys, like, if you take care of yourself, if you do the things she likes to do, you take her dancing because she wants to, you do those things, like we said in the last episode, if she's in love with you, she's extremely unlikely to want to go and stray, right? Guys, and I'll be real, like, guys will have the tendency to have the desire to go and stray just simply because guys are dudes and we are wired to do such. It is our curse that we have to resist that curse, right? They don't have that same curse. If they are in love and they look up and respect and admire their man, they're super unlikely to want to go and stray. So, what does that mean? That means guys have a lot more responsibility to take care of themselves and seek excellence and be the guy and be the one that's there for her. Because if you are, you have less to be concerned about. That's just the nature of the beast. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or fair. I'm just saying that's the way life works.
Yeah, and it's such a crazy thing because when you understand it, then you understand it. You understand how, like, the more that you actually come together as a couple, you understand the way that, like, I feel like I understand you and the way that men think a little bit better. And that only happens when you can have these conversations and you can go through these situations, because had I been super stubborn in the past and said, well, screw you, I'm going to do this stuff anyway, you know, that puts you in a different perspective also, right? Like, that all puts us all in different positions. And any and all actions that we take have consequences. And they can be good consequences and they can be bad consequences. But when you're willing to work together as a couple and realize, like, things that are self-improvement, things that are bettering you as a single, not as a single person, but bettering you as you're developing your individuality, that's okay. But if it's something where you're becoming an individual single person, then that's where it can be a problem. And so I think that's where you've got to ask yourself and just be honest with yourself and say, who am I in this situation? Or what is my thinking in this situation? Is it actually helping me work towards a better relationship with my partner? Or is it bringing me further away? Is my partner suffocating me and giving me all these rules that, like, are really crazy? That could be possible too. And you need to have that conversation. Be strong enough to have that conversation and say, hey, you know what? I need this for me to develop myself individually so that I can be better for our relationship, right? Like, if the things that you're doing are going to better you for your relationship on your own, then there shouldn't be any reason for your partner to not allow you to do those things. But sometimes you have to have that conversation so you can get to a point.
Well, I don't like the word allow anyways, right? Sri will call me and she's like, hey, is it okay if I do this or that? And I'm like, of course it's okay. But it's cool that she at least asks and respects me enough to ask me. But at the same time, I'm like, I kind of don't like that she feels like she needs to ask me. Like, there's times she's like, oh, it's my sister's birthday. Do you care if I go out? And I'm like, no, not at all. Go, right? But it's cool to, like, just be conscientious enough to, like, ask and let them know what your plans are, I guess, right? But
yeah, and
I don't know.
And I think it's just being able to come together at the end of the day. And here's the biggest thing that Brandon and I have made as, like, kind of not really a requirement, but it's just something that we've decided over the years. Like, we've seen different family members and different friend couples that we've seen where at night they all go to bed at different times. And one of the things that Brandon and I always say that we do is we always go to bed together every single night. Whether there's hanky-panky or whether there's not, we always go to bed together at the same time. And that's kind
Hanky,
of
hanky, huh?
that was like back in the 40s. I'm
Yeah,
saying that I just said,
hanky,
you know, like being able to have that thing that we do every single night, and it's every single night. Like I'm not sitting up doing my own thing, he's not doing his own thing. Like we say at this time, pretty much for the most part, we go to bed every night. And I will say that's been a huge part of like what brings us together at the end of the day. Whether we're mad at each other, whether we're good with each other, like that's what brings us back together at every end of the day. And I think that's no matter if I'm going out with my sisters or he's going out with his buddies, like if we can be together at the end of the night, like that's huge. And it actually brings us closer together, and that's something that I would recommend for you guys if you guys don't do that. It's been a huge part in our relationship, and
I agree.
And that's what I would leave you guys with. So yeah, what do you think?
Because why? You end it with a bang.
You end it with a bang.
That's right.
Bang, 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 bang. What's that thing?
That's a
We can't
TV
say
show
that,
that they don't ever watch. We've seen all the episodes of How I Met Your Mother like probably 4 or 5 times.
I said a bang, bang,
Bang,
bangity
bang,
bang, bada
bang,
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 bangity
bang.
bang. Okay.
Anyways,
Sorry,
peace
we're
out.
crazy.
All right, that's enough. That's all you get right now. We'll give you some more. We'll spit some more wisdom next time, but right now it's bedtime.
Hopefully it's wisdom, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm super buzzed right now, so we'll see.
Love you guys. Thanks for hanging out and
Peace out.
giving us a listen. See ya.
All right, see you next time.